Hi guys, it's Beth from Make the Move team, and the whole team is here. We've got Samantha, Carla, and Carolyn. Today we're going to talk to Brittany Fleshman, a hot, hot, yeah, but like that was weird. Sorry, a local local lender here in the area, and she's one of our absolute favorite lenders. And we're going to talk about like a couple things and what does the future look like and where's your crystal ball, if you could show that to us, and get some outtakes from Brittany today. So take it away, Brittany.
All right. Well, thank you. I am just going to fly through some kind of not predictions per se, but just what to expect and what other, I don't know personally, and I wouldn't make a prediction personally, but what other professionals in the industry and people who are following and tracking all of this are saying, kind of encapsulating it. And this is really off the back of some of the questions that your amazing team had. And so I've condensed them and hopefully we'll answer them fairly efficiently. So one of the questions was about forbearance and what happens when that's lifted. Do we expect a lot of foreclosures, things like that? So this, of course, like everything else about 2020, has never been seen before. It hasn't been done before. So one of the unique things about forbearance with COVID-19 and everything that's happened is, in most cases, and a lot of you may know this because you may have gotten this letter from your service provider for your own mortgage, is you don't have to prove that you're having a hard time. You don't have to prove a job loss. You don't have to prove loss of income. There was no proof needed for anybody to go into forbearance. And so the potential upside to that is that not everybody who went into forbearance was truly under distress or financial distress. But maybe it was just, hey, this is what we're choosing to do as a family because we don't know what's going to happen, because nobody knows what's going to happen, and these are unprecedented times. So that's something that I view as potential positive, as far as it's not necessarily as dark as the numbers look for forbearance, because anybody could go into forbearance. And again, I know that's kind of widely known just because most people got that letter if you currently have a mortgage. So one of the dangers of forbearance, or kind of two of them that I'll hit on, is one, this has been mostly addressed, but one of them was some servicers were saying, oh yeah, you can go into forbearance and you can miss 3 months payment. And then of course in the small print was everything is due month 4. Well, I don't care if you're in the best of times, like that's not a good situation for most people. It's not helpful to have 3 months of missed payments to then have it all due in month 4. That's not something that's super common, but if that is the kind of forbearance someone entered in and didn't understand it, then that is kind of a more dangerous situation. So most of that isn't happening because it isn't very logical, right? But it is something that does exist. So something just to be aware of if you or someone you know considers going into forbearance. Make sure you understand the terms and when it's going to be due. The other thing is you can't, and this affects all of you guys, and I'm sure you know this, but you can't sell your house if you're currently in forbearance. And so that's something to be mindful of. We are in scary times. There's so much pressure on so many people on so many levels that it can feel like an easy, quick fix to say, okay, well, we're just going to go into forbearance and figure it out. Oh, by the way, Beth, I want to sell my house. Well, that's not going to work. So something to just be mindful of and do some forward thinking and get in touch with Beth or whoever on Beth's team you're working with. Get in touch with myself so we can get a plan together to help you be ready to sell your house and then be able to buy a house, because that's the bigger side of it. You can sell it, but you can't then buy another house, and nobody wants to be put in that position without being aware of it. So those are kind of the big things on forbearance. In other general mortgage news and what's coming and what are we seeing, inventory is low. That's, again, pretty common knowledge, something I know all you ladies are painfully aware of, but that's kind of just, it is what it is at the moment. And then as far as interest rates go, they are expected to stay good in the bigger scheme of things. they'll likely start to rise a little bit. But that's really not something that affects anybody negatively. If you're not watching rates every day, like I do, you probably wouldn't even know that this rate is a little higher than it was, say, 2 months ago, or whatever the case may be. Ultimately, because of the economy and, the government is kind of holding the economy up largely through real estate and mortgage, they're not going to skyrocket. We certainly don't expect that. But we do expect a little bit of a raise in rates in the mortgage industry, even though that may not happen with the Fed rates. They're not directly correlated. That's kind of a whole nother story, but that's the general expectation. The other thing to note is historically during election time, rates do go up temporarily because typically elections, it's a volatile time. Volatility breeds fear. Fear breeds higher rates temporarily. And that's not something that I'm even hearing people talk about in the past, and something to kind of be aware of. But again, not a big scary thing, because that's usually is really only about a month or so, if it even happens. But that is something to note if you're considering refinancing, because now is a really good time to do that before we hit that kind of highly volatile time. So we can go ahead and get your rate locked. So if you're considering that, reach out and let's see if we can, save you some money now. Let's see, flying through this, if there's anything else. So I am going to attempt to play about 3 minutes of a video from Barry Habib. He is one of the industry leaders on what's happening in the market and specifically what's going to happen with rates and all of that jazz. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Wish me luck. And so am I able to? It says I need the host's permission. If it doesn't work, that's fine. But more or less, I can kind of recap what I was going to share. And it's really something to...
You can do it now.
I can do it?
I made you the host.
Okay. Yay, thank you. I feel all the power now. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Brittany, we can't hear him.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure why that is, but I'm going to stop sharing. If you can't hear it, it's not very helpful. Basically, Barry Habib is talking about the ADAM data that came out a couple days ago, saying that there's a crisis in affordability, that is not true, and that more or less my point in sharing this is whatever you hear on mass media about real estate and mortgage and all of that, it's still media, so be careful what you believe. Reach out to a professional that's in it and seeing what's happening every day that you trust. So reach out to Beth and her team, reach out to myself so we can answer questions for you. But there's not an affordability crisis. What got skewed and why that data came out is because it was based on new builds. And so the demand for new builds is at a lower price point because more and more renters are wanting to become homeowners. There's low inventory. And so the primary client for new builders recently has been first-time home buyers and not move-up home buyers. And so in reality, the affordability crisis isn't actually true. The values aren't going down. The demand is just for first-time homes more than move-up homes. In reality, the appreciation, specifically in Denton right now, is about 6.67%, which is great. So anyway, that's kind of a recap of what he was saying. Again, more or less, call your trusted professional and don't just trust what you hear on the media, which I know we're all wildly aware of right now with everything. So that is all I have, Beth. I will turn it back.
So Brittany, just to summarize what I think I just heard you say,
Yep.
there's more first-time home buyers out there. And so therefore, the average sales price on a house is a little lower than we normally are seeing. And therefore, it looks like there was some affordability, or maybe, people but not buying as much house, but really it's just more first-time home buyers that are at that 250 and Denton price point. It's kind of what I think we see here with new home builds and everything. There's a big push on $250,000 brand new homes. That we've got a lot of that in the area. And
yep, exactly.
and so that's why it looks like it's lower, even though it's not really lower.
Right. We just have more first-time home buyers wanting to buy new builds than not. And so it's a very simple mistake that was made that was then presented as this huge crisis. That's not a crisis. Yeah. It's just a shift in who's buying.
I hadn't heard that as a crisis, but that is super interesting.
Yeah.
And good information. So what do you think is going to happen next year? Are we going to see a ton of foreclosures? Or not? I mean, do we have any idea there?
It's tough to know, and I won't claim to know or have a prediction per se. I think there will be some, just because the reality is that there are still lots of jobless claims and things like that. But again, I think it may not be quite as severe as it would appear based on the number of people that have gone into foreclosure, because again, there was no proof needed. Anyone, even doing quite well, could go into forbearance, not foreclosure, but forbearance. So I think that may skew. It will be interesting to see. Again, this is new for everybody, but it'll be an interesting thing to watch. But I think, of course, there would be some, but I don't expect a huge dramatic spike in that, overall. And because the economy is slowly starting to come back. Again, it's all very unknown, so we'll see. But I'm leaning towards the optimistic side of that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Did you have any other questions, Samantha? Anybody else? For Brittany, since we have like 2 minutes.
Speak. Now I can speak.
Okay.
No, thank you, Brittany. That was actually incredibly helpful, and I learned a couple of things. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I did not understand, and that was perfect clarity. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. And I think I'm still the host, so you may want to take back over since I will have to hop
I need to take control.
Yes, take control. Thank you all for your time. It was great to see you all.
Okay.
Thank you. Seriously, very helpful.
Hey, thank you. Absolutely. So appreciate it. I'm
You're
going
welcome.
to pause.